What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch, making some money, investing in fractional real estate online, as usual. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Goldfield. This is Mogul's newest property launch. It is a 9-bedroom, 4-bathroom pad split in Mesa, Arizona. If you remember, I own a piece of the Roads, which is a pad split in Mesa, Arizona that's doing fantastically. So I'm pretty interested to find out more about this one. This is going to be not the most thorough video that I'm doing, and the Wagner already sold out. I did get some questions answered that I had posed in the last video. I want to actually just give those answers because I think it's important to instill maybe some confidence in Mogul, because I know I raised some questions and said, hey, these are some issues. I don't know. I'm not going to buy this one. Well, obviously, no, but not everybody else had those same worries because it did sell out. But because I raised them and I did get responses, I want to share, what those are. So first, one big question, and a lot of people talked about this in the Discord. They said, hey, the Mogul fee on this is 7%, right? Why is this fee 7%? Well, this, Alex mentioned this is just a UI issue, right? It's the way it's presented. Their fee wasn't actually 7%. They were adding, their fee was the 5% that it's always been, and it's where they put the additional closing costs that we were, because as part of, so the price was reduced while the property was in escrow, and so as part of that, the agreement to reduce the price, us as buyers, the entity as a buyer, agreed to pick up some of the closing costs, and that's where that's the line item that they put it into. Why it ended up there and not in reserves and closing costs, I don't really know. Probably because of how it's broken out actually on the analysis tab and then feeds through into there is my guess. But he said, they realized that was an issue. It's something they're going to fix so that in the future that's more clear. But yeah, I know a lot of people are like, well, what's going on? Did they raise their rate, their fee to 7%? Well, that's not the case. The other thing is, when I was doing that video, I told you I was assuming it had been under contract for $435, and then there was an amendment to change it to $375, and I was assuming that was because it was from an appraisal. And he did actually send me a copy of their appraisal. I'm not going to share it in this video. Sometimes appraisers don't like their appraisals being, published anywhere, and so I don't know if that's the case or not in this. But I looked through it. It did appraise right at the 375, so it wasn't as if, one of the things that I was worried about is maybe it appraised even lower, but they just came to an agreement somewhere in between. So the price that this was offered at, this 375, was the price that the appraisal came in at. And so it's a good thing. It makes me feel good about what they're doing. Because if you watched that last video, it was a concern for me. And so I always like it when I get answers and it is, the answer that I hoped for. Anyway, I just thought I'd give those two updates because I did raise those questions and they got back to me. I just asked them pretty late. These properties are just selling out really fast. It's why I'm going to just jump in and do this video now on the Goldfield, even though I haven't necessarily done as thorough of, digging into this one as I usually do, but I'm going to try to talk about it a little bit here. So this is another one where it is, the property is being renovated, or was renovated to be put up as a pad split. Let's see, we've seen several of these in this market, and I think it's pretty much going to be the same thing. It's going to be delivered with top of the line amenities, and they're saying which is the standard for our net new Phoenix pad splits. I'm actually not sure exactly what they mean by that phrase, but so, all the new ones that we've seen there, they're basically being delivered, ready to operate, and some of the sellers are actually putting them up on the market prior to closing. Even it doesn't specifically mention that, but I think it's possible that. And it's when we use the calculator, I have to remember it was 4 bathrooms. One of them was an ensuite. So let's see. what a couple of I'm only going to talk about a couple of things here. One, this is the shaded X FEMA flood zone. You can read what that really means as far as risks. Most of this market, it seems like, is in this flood zone, and for me, I've been comfortable with it, and I do own a couple of pieces of deals now in this shaded X zone. I think if you watch my video on the Hugo, it's where I have the longest discussion of it. But anyway, if you have thoughts about that, you can always just jump in the Discord and talk about these things, or put questions in the comments to the videos. Before I forget, please like and subscribe. In the description of this video, I'll have links set up to all the places where I'm currently investing in fractional real estate online, Mogul being one of them. Several of those links are affiliate or referral links that will potentially give you some benefit from using them to sign up. Sometimes there's a minimum investment, and then you might get $50 or some credit towards the investment that you make. But you want to do your own due diligence on all of these platforms in any of the properties that I mentioned. Just because I'm investing on them doesn't mean that you should. In some of the ones that I'm invested on, you shouldn't invest. They might not just fit your risk profile and that sort of thing. Also, in the description of this video, I have links to, or a link to the Discord that I set up, where we talk about all different fractional real estate channels or platforms. We're I think somewhere around 250 investors on there now, talking about deals on a regular basis, different strategies, different platforms. So please feel free to join that. It's not a sales funnel. If somebody who looks like me DMs you after you join, it's not me. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Report them. I have a little fraud center now, like where you can just put a little thread where you can report people. If they're actually in the server, I'll boot them. Otherwise, all you can do is report them to Discord. Okay, anyway. So that's the FEMA flood map. That's the issue we talked about there. The crime map, this is the spot crime map. It's better looking than some of the ones that we've seen in this greater Arizona market. This is only 4 or 5 days though of crimes, so you can see there are a decent number. I think this is a school right here, so maybe you're just not going to have those crimes. It's not going to happen necessarily right on the school, but it's not terrible. For the pad splits specifically, I've gotten used to them being in areas where we have worse crime maps than for some of the other strategies. I'm much more picky with the crime map when we're looking at short-term rentals, mostly because of reviews and how guests feel unsafe and whatnot. And if someone's living here in a pad split, they probably understand the area a lot better. And it's just some of the most affordable housing, so often it's going to be in an area that has a less favorable crime map than some other parts of town. But this one looks actually pretty good to me, compared to a lot that we've seen. A couple of things I wanted to point out. Was there something in the purchase contract? Oh, I thought this is actually kind of weird. They waived the seller property disclosure statement. This isn't even something you're allowed to do in Texas, as far as I know. That's the market where I operate in. But every state is different, and so I guess this is, there's a form for this, so I guess this is something that you can do. Is the seller's not giving you a property disclosure statement, and so the buyer is waiving this part of the contract, which I'm guessing provides some protections related to that. I didn't even go back and read it. The reason that seems strange to me is the seller is renovating this property, so they should be in a position to really tell you all about it. It seems like they would have more information and details on a property that they're fully renovating than you'd normally get. So anyway, that struck me as a little bit odd. I want to talk about the valuation in the square footage and what I think is going on. It actually adds up perfectly, so I'm fairly certain about this, especially once we look at the floor plan. So this says it's 2,082 square feet. When we look at Zillow, and remember, we're buying this for $525,000 is the purchase price. When we look at Zillow, the Zestimate is $393,600, but it also just thinks it's 1,500 square feet. So we have about 500 more square feet than that square footage, and which is a third more, and we're only we're about a little more than 25% low price wise for this estimate. I think the Realtor.com one is a little bit worse. Yeah, their estimate is 382, but again, they're giving us this 1,500 square foot number. I don't know why. It's been a long. I haven't been to bed yet, and it's 9:43 a.m. That's ridiculous. Gonna take a nap soon, and so sorry about this. But like I said, I just wanted to get this out because these have been just selling so quick, and right now there's a decent amount of this remaining, and so I wanted to make sure that I'm at least talking about it well. And you see this video when there's an opportunity to buy it, if this is helpful and it makes sense for you to buy it. Okay, and then let's see. Where do we have, estimated sale price $357 to $432 here, and yeah, there's $374. But again, this site thinks it's 1,522 square feet. Well, why are we 500 off? Well, when you look at, this is the county website, the county assessor, you can see, okay, they have 1,296 square feet on the first floor. They have this 226 square foot addition. You add those two together, right? Let's do math because math is fun. I haven't told you that in a while, huh? Math is fun. Plus 226. That gets you the 1,522 number that we're seeing on all the websites, right? The first floor space plus the addition of 226 square feet. Then you have this attached garage, which is 560 square feet. Oops. Let's add that and then add it to also the 1,296. And that gets us to the 2,082 that this listing says it is, right? And if we look at this picture and we compare it, to this picture, like here we have the addition, and then right by the addition there's the garage. But in the floor plan here, we have, that's clearly the shape of the addition, but we have 3 bedrooms, a bathroom, and the laundry room. So what they did, or what they're doing, but prior to closing, is turning this garage space into additional livable square feet. We've talked about this before. A lot of times a converted garage, that square footage doesn't necessarily add 100% of the dollars per square foot in value that you're going to get from the property. But one of the things I noticed too, looking at this on Zillow, this $204 per square foot is, I think, using this price, not this estimate. But so let's take this estimate, right? We have 393, 600. We divide it by the 2,082 square feet. Nope, I'm screwing something up. That's what I'm screwing up. We take the 393, 600, and we divide it by the square footage that Zillow is using, the 1,522, and that's $258 per square foot. Notice that's not the 204. I think that's based on the last sale price. I'm not sure. But then let's multiply that by the 2,082 square footage with the garage. And then you can say, okay, well, then we should be paying $538 for this. And what are we paying for it? What did I say? Why am I not seeing it? Oh, right there, $525. You can see, yep, not doing all that. So if we just did it, pure math like that, then it seems like, okay, well, maybe we're actually getting this a little bit underpriced. Well, I don't really believe that because we lost the garage and there's some value to a garage. Maybe it's $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. It depends on the market and what comps, with and without garages, what they go for. But clearly adding that livable space added value, and it seems like it proportionately, it makes a lot of sense. So when I'm looking at these, the valuation is one of the better ones we've seen in quite a while. I say that. I guess I said that about another one recently. So I think I'm reasonably happy with this valuation, and that's I think that's really all I'm going to say about that. Let's see. Yeah, let's close this out. We just talked about that. Let's close that. Close the FEMA flood map. Close the spot crime. Close that one. Oh, I did do the little transit map. and you can see it is a 7-minute walk to what I think is the closest bus stop. That's pretty good, especially because it doesn't look like there's a ton of street parking. You probably have room for 2 cars in the driveway, and then maybe 1 or 2 in front of the property. That's not great for a 9-bedroom home, but in a lot of markets, we're very the pad split clientele is very dependent on public transportation, and so a 7-minute walk to the bus stop, I think that works well here. There's also, if they needed to expand the parking, there's room to do so on the property. So I feel pretty good about that. That combination. You can see it looks like they used to have a pool on the property that's been filled in. I'm actually glad that it is. I think for pad split, you don't necessarily want that pool. It's an extra expense, and I don't think that you really get the benefit, any extra revenue for having it. I actually think one of the pad splits on Mogul did have a pool, but it is, it's not something that's typically an amenity that pad split wants you to have, right? It may be acceptable to them, but it's not something that they're looking for. So I think it's good that that's filled in. We're not getting the extra expense. And one of the things I was looking to see, like, okay, is this area, is there street parking behind the property? I don't think that there is. You can't like drop the little guy there, but I think what this is like student drop off for the school. I don't think those are people that are parked there. If anybody's dug into this a little bit more and knows if that's what's actually happening, but I think this is just like, drop off and pick up line. Maybe I just think that because that's what I have to do for my kid, or I used to. Now he walks, which is fantastic. But anyway, let's see. Okay, let's close some of this other stuff too. Close that one. Close this one. Yeah, like I said, I'm really just powering through this. I haven't done as deep a dive as I would have wanted to. I did put in the pad split calculator. This is using, and I do want to check this. Okay, 8 bedrooms that have shared bathrooms, and then 1 that has the ensuite. That's what we talked about earlier. So 9 bedrooms total. Calculate earnings. I do have this address, and right address, and then we view the breakdown. And if you remember, when we use this calculator on pad split, what I believe should be flowing through to Mogul's top line revenue number, which they use here, so they've estimated 69,600, is this effective gross income less this total platform fees number. And so if you look at that, and let's do our math again, because we got excited about doing math earlier. So 78,848 minus the 11,698, so 67,150. So I'm sure what they did is just tweak some things. Maybe they think that they have nicer amenities, whatever it is. So they're estimating slightly above that calculator. But for me, that's close enough that I'm okay with it. Usually when I'm doing this sort of due diligence, and I've mentioned this a lot of times, and yes, I think it's faltered a little bit, but I really do just trust the business acumen of the Mogul guys. Just because I do doesn't mean that you should, right? But they are classically trained real estate investors, have the right pedigree. And so a lot of times, unless there's some reason for me to doubt something, I think that they've probably done the work. And I'm using these things, to come up with the estimates that they have. And I'm using these third-party tools just to sort of, for some checks and balances to verify. So when I come within a couple $1,000s of what their estimate is, I'm not saying, okay, no, they're wrong. This is really going to be $2,000 cheaper or $1,000 cheaper, whatever it is. Yeah, 2,000. That's within a margin of error that I'm just going to take their word for it, that's going to be the number. Now, and I do want to mention, if you're new to my channel, several of my short-term rentals that I bought on Mogul are not performing to what, the way that they had predicted. So, just because I do think they're, they know what they're doing doesn't mean that their predictions are always going to be accurate. The other thing, too, is to keep in mind that just because they have a certain prediction for year one, nobody thinks we're going to hit exactly these numbers in each given month and it's going to work out, right? This is very early on in my career. Somebody who I was was helping me do some financial analysis, pointed out that the one thing that all financial models have in common is that they're all wrong, right? Well, like, you're never going to predict your investments into the future and get every line item right to the penny. And so, that's one thing. Like, okay, if we're missing some months, yeah, I mean, there's going to be other months and maybe future years where we outperform. Now, if overall and on average I start to see a trend where we're not hitting numbers, then I'll be much more concerned. So far, that hasn't been the case with my pad splits on Mogul, but it has been the case with my short-term rentals. Now, I don't have any that I've purchased and are up and running yet on Mogul, any pad splits where they did this model where they bought it and started it from scratch. All the ones that I have that are performing well, they bought existing operating pad splits that already had members in place in the units. So that is a difference. It's one of the reasons that I've been really slow to buy some of these. But I think I'm probably going to pull the trigger on this one because I don't really, I think the valuation, maybe we're stretching a little bit, maybe not, but I believe we have the appraisal waiver in this as well. I don't know why this one's going so slow when we go through it. So we've got that going on. Let's see. But it looks like we're pretty close once you take into account that the new living space, right? Like, if we're using this square footage number, it makes a lot of sense, especially too, it is an added bathroom. It's not just big open space. And I believe it's probably going to come furnished, although, yeah, because they're saying, delivered with top of the line amenities. And so I believe they mean, they've talked about in other ones that they include like a bed, a desk, and a TV. Hopefully that's what they're doing here. That is one thing that, like, words are free, right? I mean, I realize it takes time to write these up and that maybe not everybody reads all of these, but I'd love it if this, every time this section had just a lot more information in it, whether it was bullet points or whatnot. They always hit the highlights on like whatever I think is good for this property. And so sometimes it seems like maybe this is just more, and it is, it's obviously it's their website, it's their marketing. But I think sometimes, a little bit more detail on some of that is what I'm always looking for, right? And so I end up reaching out and asking questions. But yeah, where they're just selling quickly, like, I'd love to just be able to look at this listing and just know the answers. Like, yes, these are, this is what they're doing. This is the exact strategy. It's going to have these things, the furniture's already there. These are the items that they're having and whatnot, and I realize, they are selling out quick. People, obviously, lots of other investors don't care about that, right? They've come to trust Mogul. They're just buying it. And if that's you, if that's you, you're probably not watching this video. But yeah, anyway, back to, okay, what do I think about this one? I think I'm actually it's been a while since, I think the Blitzen's the last one I bought a piece of. So, okay, it is, let's see, the year one yield, they're projecting it at 8.1. It is one where we're just having to rely on their projections. That's what kind of got me off on that tangent. I really like this Mesa, Arizona market. My other property is doing really well in this market, the Rhodes. Although it was one that was, it's 10 bedrooms. It was already operating. Let's see if we can look at the Rhodes. Let's see how much we paid for that. And I believe, like I said, I believe it's 10 bedrooms. I think it was actually less bathrooms though. I should have had this up and thought about this sooner. I bought it. It was it was like the second one that I got a piece of. Okay, did I miss it? I must have missed it. Nobody told me. You guys should have told me when I missed it. Are these just not in order? Maybe they're not in order. Let me control F and see if it's on there. Okay, well, let me look in my portfolio and see if I can do it that way. Yeah, you guys are coming along for the ride. This is exciting. Okay, the roads. Is there a link to the property? Yeah, view property. You can see, they had higher projections. What was the year one? 9.4 versus 8. But let's see. It was 10 bedrooms, larger property, less bathrooms. But we did pay more for it, right? Okay, so actually, that's really interesting too. Let's see if let's map it. Okay, we're going rogue today because this is not usually I have all my tabs open. Hopefully I don't freeze my computer. That does happen a lot if I try to mess around while using my screen recorder for some reason. Okay, yep, trying to do it from my location seems dumb. That's not what I'm doing. Okay, so they're only 10 minutes apart, right? This is the subject property we're talking about today. This is the one that I already own a piece of that's doing well. We paid $600,000 for 10 bedrooms here. We're paying $525,000 for 9 bedrooms here, more bathrooms, less square footage. I don't know. That actually makes me feel pretty good about that too. This one did seem a little bit more spacious, and it makes sense because it was 2,600 square feet. But it is less bathrooms, right? And I think there might not have been. I don't remember if there was any en-suites, but yeah, this one. Let me go back to my portfolio. I'm fairly certain this one has been a very good performer for me. I know I said that, but let me just verify, right? Yeah, I mean, look at this annual yield. It stayed. I mean, it significantly outperformed what they had told me that the year one yield was going to be. So, if that happens on this one, that would be exciting. Yeah, so I think I'm going to buy a piece of this one. It's the first one that I've said that in a while. I know I've got this little reward balance, but I also have like $600, I think, in rents that have just built up that I haven't bought. It can't be that much. I don't know. But so, yeah, I got to go ahead and do that. I'm not going to do that while I'm on here because that really breaks my screen. My screen recorder doesn't ever work when I'm trying to do transactions, and I think it's probably built that way for some reason. It freezes them on a lot of different websites. I'll probably wait until later today because I'd like to get feedback from the community. Are you buying into this? Did you because like I said, I mean, I just did a kind of rushed due diligence. Has anybody come up with some concerns for why they might not want to buy this? If so, please put it in the comments or jump in the Discord or feel free to DM me. Maybe you'll save me from making a bad investment, or maybe you think this is a great deal. And like I said, it is all of their new deals are coming out with just like a lower predicted year one yield. I think it makes sense to do that, especially on these ones where hopefully they're just being very conservative in their estimates. Because they don't have the historic numbers. But yeah, having a property that's nearby makes me believe that they should have a good sense. They're probably using, is it the same property manager? My guess is they're going to use the same property manager, Provident Partners. Let's go back here and see if that one still shows. They might have not been using the same one at that time, though. So let's see. Oh. Am I looking at the wrong thing? Is this one? Yeah, this is the roads. This one that said managed by PadSplit, but PadSplit's like usually you use a third-party manager on top of using PadSplit. PadSplit's kind of like the Airbnb type app, and then you have another manager as well. Anyway, now I'm kind of just getting off track. I like it. Do you like it? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the Discord. Again, just because I might buy some of this doesn't mean that you should. You definitely want to do your own due diligence. Dig into the things that I mentioned, but also all the things that are important to you when making an investment. That's really it for me for today. Until next time, I'm going to just keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.